Hey, girl. Hey, happy Wednesday. If you don't know me, I am Olivia Denton Thomas, the brand counselor, helping you go from hustling to wholeness with brand strategy. And I am particularly excited to be here. Let me put my phone on Do Not Disturb. I'm excited to talk about struggle. I mean, I think in a way, a lot of these conversations end up being about almost the same thing, but I think it's because so much of this entrepreneurship journey, this business owner journey, is about maintaining like a sense of direction, not even necessarily a sense of control, right? Unless we're talking about control of yourself. It's more so about having like an internal locus of control where you determine what is good and what is bad and how to take action, right? Things are objectively good and bad, but the question is always, how do you take action? So this week, we're talking about how struggle is not a sign to quit, but instead it is a site for growth. I think we often feel struggle and it might feel like we have to pivot, we have to change, we have to jump ship. Um, but really, it's just something that's calling us to a different kind of behavior. I will give you an example. So last week I did the same broadcast as I do every week. And for some reason my headphone caught the microphone. And instead of releasing it when I put my headphone down, there was some static between the two. So my computer and my headphone were both competing and trying to actually be the one that's conveying the sound. And then the sound ended up being terrible. Now, in the past, something like that would have happened. And I would say, oh my goodness, like it's not worth it to continue. It doesn't actually make any sense. This is hard. I'm struggling. Um, and that actually did happen last year, right? Like I was going live every day. I think it was on TikTok. And what happened was one day I went live, the thing didn't go through like at all. Like I had this whole long conversation about whatever the topic was and felt good and I was kind of on a roll. But then it turned out that the sound wasn't working. Some part of the broadcast cut off and it was just like it didn't work. It just didn't work out in the way that I thought it would work or that I wanted it to work, right? And I was so hurt. I was so hurt. And the reason I was like particularly hurt was because like sometimes it takes me a lot of energy to do something imperfectly, right? Like I have this narrative where if things aren't perfect, um, they aren't worth doing. And it's funny because I was just talking to my dad about that, and he said, he's operated in that narrative as well, where it's like, oh, if I can't do it perfectly, I'd really rather not do it. And that is a trap. That is an absolute trap because so much of owning a business, so much of being a someone building something is being able to operate in the risk of imperfection. I don't know who did it. I don't know who told you that you had to show up 100% um, all the time. Actually, I do. Um, and it's funny because I was talking to my bonus daughter about this because we were talking about new schools and what it means to be graded on things. And a lot of our systems do kind of fall in line with this idea that you want to always get 100%. You want to get the A. You want to show up in a way where you are measurably better than other people. Now, it's not bad to measure yourself and to compete with yourself every day, every week, every time. But if you're kind of looking left and right and saying, like, oh man, they're experiencing this success, they are experiencing something that I feel like I should be experiencing, you're going to put a pause on what you can possibly even do, right? Like whatever struggles you have with like shame is a huge conversation for me. Like those are going to be the things that stop you from progressing because instead of seeing the struggle as a moment, you start to internalize what the struggle means about you. It doesn't mean anything about you. It really doesn't, right? It just means that there is more room for growth. But as a person, as an individual, it doesn't mean that anything's like wrong with you or that this isn't for you because something is actually hard. It just means that you can train a little more, you can learn a little more, you can try a little bit differently. So instead of last week's microphone ordeal becoming my oh my gosh, what was me narrative, um, I pulled out my mic, right? I pulled out my mic and I made sure it was connected to my computer instead of thinking about the computer's internal microphone or my headphones, right? Where I could accidentally pull here, pull there, and then things go wrong because I'm not taking the precautions to make sure things go right. Right. So instead of saying like, oh man, this is terrible, I did what I had to do. I learned from it. Right. Instead of saying like I'm struggling and this is scary and let me go cloister, you have to figure out what the next step is going to be. And especially if you're in wow, a a phase of growth where you've already experienced some good, hitting those spaces of struggle might feel particularly scary or strange because you've already been like in an upward trajectory, right? So that's the thing about when you're hustling forward, sometimes you get so much momentum that it feels like that's what it's going to be all the time, right? You're just kind of bulldozing through the things and you're doing your thing and that's exciting. I'm very proud of you. And sometimes that's just not how it is. Sometimes you are slowing down to make sure that you are strategically in the right places, that you're attracting the right people, that your messaging is good, that you're actually doing something that's going to net something that you would really like and really benefit from instead of just something. It is easy to get just something. You can always go out and sell whatever, say whatever, attract whatever. But on the back end of that, you're not actually going to be happy with the results. Um, and that's what happens a lot of the time. People are often very sad because they are in a situation that they didn't curate for themselves. So they get to the point of struggle and don't really know what to do with themselves. And struggle when you're trying to organize is very normal because you're going against what is, I don't know, you're going against what is understood. And that's fine. Struggling struggling leads to suddenly, right? Like you always hear those things where like, oh, they suddenly appeared out of nowhere, or oh, they are suddenly famous, or oh, like suddenly things are changing. There is no such thing as suddenly. There is putting in enough work and showing up enough and maneuvering enough and changing things enough and standing your ground enough that by the time that preparation meets opportunity meets timing, it looks like it came out of nowhere, right? There's going to be those periods where it's just like none of this actually makes any sense, but it makes a lot of sense. And struggle doesn't make you good or bad, right? Like it's important to remember that like it's not a moral indictment. um, it doesn't mean you're not doing enough here or there, or that you haven't pulled yourself by your bootstraps enough, or any of those things, even though that seems like the narrative, right? Like, and oftentimes we look at that narrative and we don't realize the people that are giving it to you are people who are backed by other people. So even in their periods of like business struggle, they are foundationally set to the point where that the struggle here for the thing that they're building doesn't necessarily impact their everyday life. Their everyday life is absolutely secure. So it's not even really the same narrative, right? So you have to remember that like it's okay to struggle. Like it actually is fine. And another thing that's going to help you keep from struggling, I had this conversation with a friend yesterday, and a client, and it's just always kind of a thing to talk about. Is one of the things that makes struggle feel so painful is when you don't have money coming in. And sometimes the best thing you can do is have an anchor client, right? An anchor client is the one that pays the bills, the one that makes sure your home is taken care of, your life is taken care of. Like this is your investor. Um, so you can do the things that need to be done in the business. You can invest in the business, you can invest in yourself, and you can keep your overhead. And sometimes that anchor client is not your ideal client. They are just someone who gives enough money that you don't have to think about the other things while you are building toward what you are actually trying to bring to fruition in the world. So if in the struggle your stores are running out and you're just like, oh man, what am I going to do? You can allay panic by doing something like else. Now you have to be mindful to understand that you still have to be dedicated to what you're building, right? You still have to actually build forward with intention and not get comfortable in this idea that this anchor client is covering you. Because again, we're going for long term satisfaction, we're going for long term growth, we're going for that change that's actually going to be what you are meant to bring into the world. And if the provision is providing, you have enough emotional room to actually continue on doing the building. So don't get caught up in the idea. This happens a lot, getting caught up in the idea that the anchor client is suddenly your entire world. Nope. Give them their space in the day and make sure that you are still working on your thing. Your thing is still the main job. The anchor client is the part-time job. You are the main job. You. So make sure that as you're building, you still remember that. You have to also separate your identity from the intensity of the struggle, right? So again, I was talking about moral indictments where it's like I am bad because I am struggling. You actually have to remember who you are. I am mission forward all the time. And the reason that I'm mission forward, like my branding philosophy isn't really about your audience. My branding philosophy is about you as the pillar of what you're actually doing, you and your calling, right? Because when you have an idea of what your identity is and what you're supposed to be bringing out into the world, when you look at how intensely struggle is happening, you can still bring yourself back to remembering, why you're doing what you're doing, what the results are that you are looking for, and kind of replenishing your emotional stores so that you're not just doing this thing where you're spinning your wheels and you're scared and you're just like in a tizzy, right? You have to remember you have to remember why you're doing it so that when the hard things come, because again, they're always going to come, resistance is resistance, that you still maintain your footing, right? I always talk about trees. Like I love the word flourish. And I love the word flourish because it points to flowers, it points to nature. So something is strong when it is deeply rooted. And a lot of the time, when people are building businesses, they're not really thinking about the roots. They're thinking about, what people can see, right? We're thinking about logos. We're thinking about, relationships with people, and we're thinking about, deliverables and all those different kinds of things. But if we're not thinking about the depth on which we are building or from which we're building, we're creating something that's going to blow over when the wind blows, right? If you look at a tree that's been standing for a long time, it's because it has deep, deep, deep roots. So when I talk about identity so that the intensity doesn't get you, that's really what I mean. Are your roots deep enough to hold you when the wind blows? And if the answer is no, if you're not clear on your mission, if you're not clear on your vision, if you're not clear on your values, you need to take some time and make sure that you have an understanding of what you're trying to deliver. If you're just building based off of your audience's aspirations and their wants and what moves them and what the market's saying and the trends and all these different things, you're not going to get anywhere. you're not going to get anywhere sustainably, right? You actually might get somewhere, but you might not actually be able to sustain because there's always something else to look for. There's always something else to kind of run after and chase. And then people start to wonder who you actually are, right? Like, where is your integrity if every time someone says, hey, this is cool, you run in that direction in a way that doesn't even look like you, right? You can't do that. The point is to be yourself, to be the version of you that has a full understanding of why you're here, what your mission is, what your calling is, right? So that you can actually live that out. And people can depend on the fact that you are going to show up for that mission and not just going to show up and be, I don't know, malleable whenever somebody says something or gives a boo or, whatever, that it doesn't help you. It doesn't help you. Um, it's important to decide what to carry and what to put down. So sometimes as you're struggling, you have to take a second and not try to barrel through and say what is actually working, what is real, what's an internal struggle, what's an external struggle, where can I take a break, where can I regroup, what can happen next, right? Like you have to ask yourself the questions. If you don't ask yourself the questions, you're just moving forward in a way um, where you're operating without critical assessment, right? And without that critical assessment, you might be putting yourself in the position to do something or believe something that's not really necessary for you. Um, like I've had a very weird week. I've had a very weird couple of weeks, actually. And that's kind of where this even came from because I was trying to figure out, like, what is going on? Um, Somewhere between PMS and family and transitioning my son to college and just like stuff. Like it was just a very strange week. And I had to stop and say, is this something that is real and impacting the business? Is this something that's momentary? Is this something that is going to pass eventually? And the majority of the things were things that are going to pass eventually, right? As long as I keep my eyes on what I actually have to do and just do that. Like being dedicated to the results, it's important because there are going to be things that make you question it. There are going to be things that make you wonder if like this is really meant for you to actually show up and do, or if you are even useful or impactful in these areas. Because again, sometimes you are struggling and struggling and struggling and struggling. Um, but again, you don't get to the suddenly without the struggle. So it might not look to anybody else and even to yourself that the things that you're doing are going to yield something, but the consistency with which you show up. And when I say consistency, I don't just mean the time that you put in. I mean, again, the foundations, the roots that you're actually cultivating are what is going to make a difference for you in the long run. It is consistency, it is integrity. Is this real? Right? That's what absolutely matters. Um, yeah, you get to read the season. You get to see what it's telling you, right? Your season is telling you something, and it's something that is going to be helpful for you. It's something that's probably from your past that's shaking you up. Um, that you might have to address, right? And that's okay. I think people get really scared when past things come up that they might not have really thought about. One of the things that is going to, I say, the thing that will keep you in prayer is marriage, kids, and business. Like those things will keep you on your knees in prayer because they're going to trigger every single every single childhood wound you can experience because they are always calling for you to move a little bit higher so that you can be better, right? They are a mirror. They're a mirror for your insecurities. Um, they are a mirror for your capacity or your lack of capacity. They are a mirror for whether or not you are going to do the work to actually move in a direction that's going to change the outcome, or if you're going to settle into the same outcomes that you've seen previously, right? Like whatever that outcome has been for other people, like are you going to settle into that because it is normal? Or are you going to question enough that you can actually create a different outcome for yourself, for other people, right? Like where is the accountability in what is happening in your business? Again, as a mirror, it's going to bring up the things for you that feel very painful, that feel painful in a way that like you've probably never really even considered it because for you it's normal. And the thing about normal is normal just means that it repeats. It is a system that repeats. Normal doesn't mean correct. Normal doesn't mean right. So you're going to have to challenge your systems of normalcy versus right to make sure that you are moving forward in a way that is right and not just normal, right? Like self assessment. A lot of professional development is personal development so you can get to the professional development. A lot of people will call in like an executive coach. I remember reading an article and I've also seen it where people will call in an executive coach and they're thinking about the work that they are doing and how that is actually manifesting the results that they need. But what actually happens is there is a lack of ability to lead in those situations because they are being led internally by the thing that scares them instead of being led by the thing that they actually want to move towards, right? When you're being led by the thing that scares you, it puts you in the position to be reactionary instead of proactive. You want to be proactive. But then also, if you have to react, you can still react from a place of responsibility and like questioning. Like it's okay to not be right. Like it's okay for things to not be what you thought they were. It's okay for things not to repeat as they were because that's just the way things are. That's not how things work, right? If we're trying to go and grow and create new pathways of being, we can't look at what's happening in our industries and say, hey, this is how people have always done it, and then we do it that way. Then why are you here? If you're doing it the way that it's always been done, you are you are a Me Too brand, right? And that's not the point. Being a Me Too person, doing things the way they've always been done, will get you the results that they have always gotten. So you do have to question what's happening within the struggle. Like where is it you, right? And not the professional you, because there is no professional you. The you, right? So that you have an understanding of what to do next, so that you can get a different result. Um, if there is something you are coming across or like just bucking up on over and over again, it is a point where you can ask questions, and it's okay to ask questions. It is safe. You can create enough safety to ask the questions and not like rigid safety where things have to remain the same and you have to feel right, but safety where things can actually feel very, very wrong so that you can get to right. Your brain understands safety from a place of repetition, not necessarily from a place of things actually being right. So you have to create new pathways that say, "Hey, I know this is normal for you, but you can actually choose a different direction and see if that gives you a different result. You want a different result, and I want that for you." So that's that on that. Um, once again, struggle creates suddenly, right? You have to stay the course in the things. You have to assess yourself. You have to ask the questions. You have to look at all the factors that are around you. Sometimes they're internal, sometimes they're hormonal, sometimes they are just like so many different things that are making you think that the struggle is final. The struggle is not final. The struggle is never final. Um, and it's okay to continue to see the hope that the struggle is not final, because that's what's going to take you to the next place, right? If you want to get to the next place, you have to remember that there is a next place. So I hope you have a really good day. I hope you stay aligned, understand what you're going for, and have a good Maven morning. As usual, stay intentional and keep flourishing. If you would like to work with me, I will drop the details in the comment section, where we can have a complimentary brand breakthrough session where I can look at your brand and see what your opportunities are, and we can figure out what the best way is for you to work with me. So, have a great day. I will talk to you later. See you next week.